Hey, Jeremy. All right.
So
Uh,
you want me to share my screen with my slides, or I
yeah,
also sent them to you.
yeah. You can share yours because you can control the movement. We have them as backup just in case there's connectivity issues and things like that. But since you can move forward or back and forward on the deck, it's better if you share them. And there's an icon on the bottom with an up arrow. You would use that to share. Perfect. Great. Okay, Jeremy, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Lots of people are very interested in learning about Balancer, what you guys do. Why don't you start off with a little bit about yourself? Who is Jeremy, your background, what is Balancer, and then straight away into your topic.
Sure. And you guys are seeing the full screen slide at this point?
We see the slides, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, I'm Jeremy Musighi, head of growth at Balancer Labs. I spend my time doing a lot of different stuff, but mostly partnerships and running our ecosystem fund, where we give grants to developers who are building on Balancer or integrating with the Balancer protocol, or in some other way providing a valuable service or product to the Balancer community. So there's unlimited room for creativity on that. We've rewarded even members of our community who have helped us with like community management, for example. So yeah, and today I'm going to be talking about LBPs, liquidity bootstrapping pools, which are a novel but very rapidly growing mechanism for raising for fundraising in the crypto space, launching a public centralized token sale to fund your team. I'm going to talk about the kind of overall landscape of the options that crypto teams have when they get to this stage where they're going to launch a token, and just kind of compare and contrast. So the idea here is to give any crypto developers or entrepreneurs like a clearer sense of what your options are when you want to launch a token, and also sort of highlight why LBPs are in many cases the ideal solution. So I'll start by doing a quick overview of IDO versus IEO. IDO being a decentralized token sale, and IEO being one that's being done on a centralized exchange. So these are some reasons why you might want to choose. You actually have to give like a pretty significant portion of the tokens directly to the exchange as their fee. And like, just FYI, I've seen Binance claim that they have no listing fee, but that's just because they like call it something else. But they do, take that cut, which is expensive. And so there are also limitations on who can participate, because some community members of yours may not be able to, based on their geography or other like limiting factors like KYC requirements. So as a crypto project, you probably want to be as inclusive as possible, especially for all of the people who have been supportive of your project and who will continue to be supportive. Now that's kind of zooming in more on the IDO landscape. I'm going to look at 4 options: Balancer, Uniswap, Mesa, and this idea of a initial bonding curve offering, which Hedgic developed. So Uniswap first. We'll talk about like pros and cons here. Uniswap is the most liquid DEX market. And it's a simple, straightforward platform for investors to understand how to use, and that helps facilitate running a token sale and letting your community members and investors to get involved. It's a familiar interface. They have the most trusted brand in DeFi, pretty much. But on the negative side, Uniswap is an AMM that consists strictly of 50-50 liquidity pools, meaning that they consist of half of their value in one token and half their value in a second token, and that is it. So what that means is, if you are to use Uniswap to do an IDO, or what they call an IUO, initial Uniswap offering, you have to provide an equivalent value of tokens upfront, as in the counter asset that you're raising, such as a stablecoin or ETH, equivalent to the project tokens that you're selling. So that's actually prohibitively expensive, especially if you're looking to raise, millions of dollars, for example, in your sale. So a lot of startups would be kind of not able to do that. Additionally, what's true for Uniswap and all bonding curves is that there's a problem with front running and this like FOMO effect, because a bonding curve by its design necessitates that a token price will increase each time there's a purchase made. And this creates a very high incentive for people to front run and to get their order in first before everyone else. And there's also a high incentive to then take advantage of that like FOMO pump to pump and dump the sale, where there are people who are getting involved who have no interest in your project. They really don't care about your token, but they know that this initial squeeze is going to happen. They're going to use their resources, both technically and financially, to get in first when the token sale launches, and then dump tokens on less sophisticated investors. And so what ends up happening is the community suffers in multiple ways. So it's really not an ideal option. This is an example to like, this has happened multiple times, but this is one well-known example, which was the UMA token sale on Uniswap. This is the price chart where huge spike goes in the first like minute of the sale, and then a massive crash, and then some sort of price discovery that reaches a perhaps like appropriate market price based on market sentiment. Mesa is another platform that is used a lot for token sales. On the plus side, investors are able to place bids that are sealed in advance, and then those get matched later by like through these 5-minute mini auctions, where like buy and sell orders are brought together. And on this platform, that helps some extent to like improve the experience for investors, but in the end, like bots, just as on Uniswap, still have this advantage because there's an incentive to get your orders into the first auction period. So it's like, instead of having to get your order in like very, very first, it's you have to get your order in the first 5 minutes. Still not really like solving the problem. You're also limited by the liquidity that's available because Mesa is built on the Gnosis protocol, and they do not have as high liquidity as other AMMs. And just as far as like anecdotal feedback that I've gotten from teams that have used Mesa token sales is like the complexities on the back end are pretty intense. Third, we're taking a look at Hedgic. It's not the Hedgic protocol itself, but the token sale mechanism that they developed and open sourced. So other teams can and have used this. So they have definitely done some interesting things that help alleviate some of the problems that I've mentioned on the previous platforms. So on one hand, they have sort of this design where everyone settles at the same price. So no matter who puts in their order first or last, or whatever happens, like if you're a whale, if you're just a tiny like retail investor, everyone ends up paying the same price. That means that there can't be a pump and dump. There's no effect from front running. There's no benefit to front running. But how does that work? Well, since this is, again, still a bonding curve, the price increases every time someone makes a bid. The price can only go up on a bonding curve each time someone buys or places a buy order. So everyone pays the same price, yes, but everyone pays the highest price, basically, because from the start to the end, it's just kind of going up. So if there's when you place your order in the beginning of the sale, you actually have no idea how much it's going to cost you. Yeah, this is an example of I believe the CEO of Perpetual Protocol discussing the difference between a balancer LBP and an IBCO, and that's price discovery. There is no like real mechanism for true price discovery in an IBCO because the price can only go up. So it's fair in the sense that everyone pays the same price, but it sucks in the sense that like there's no opportunity for like sort of a up and down price discovery process. Which brings us to the balancer liquidity bootstrapping pool. There's been a lot of excitement around this lately, and some pretty big projects have done token sales very recently. Even actually like more recently than I created this presentation. So I'll just kind of ad lib. I'll give you some like updates that are not shown here as we go along. Quote from one of the members of PrimeDAO who said, "It's still hard to conduct a permissionless IDO. Projects are forced to use suboptimal and outdated solutions that lead to frustration for both developers and users. Liquidity bootstrapping pools are the most promising mechanism for initial token distribution in that they enable human price discovery, are permissionless, and scalable." FYI, PrimeDAO actually did their token sale via Mesa, and this is the conclusion that they reached, just kind of after going through the whole process and getting to know LBPs better, and getting to know us better. And what's happening now, which is really exciting, is they're actually building a whole new sort of user experience for LBPs that'll be launching as part of the Balancer V2, which is targeted for the end of this month. But that's kind of a different topic. Chris Berninsky of Placeholder VC, also a fan of LBPs. Token launchers take note. LBPs on Balancer provide for a balanced launch that quells FOMO and better serves your community. So yeah, that's what it's all about. So let's get into like some of the details for why people are so like positive about this. Number one is LBPs are designed to create downward price discovery. So an LBP is a specific configuration of a Balancer smart pool or of a liquidity pool on Balancer. And in this implementation, in this configuration, the developer will set a start weight and end weight for the pool. What that means is when your LBP begins, the pool will contain tokens that you have specified. That could be 2 tokens, it could be 3 tokens. We did have our first 3 token LBP like last month or so. Most of them have been 2 tokens so far. So let's say, for example, you have your project token and you have USDC, which is your reserve asset that that's the asset that you're raising in this sale. You will set your asset to a higher weight, for example, let's say 80%, and then you would set USDC to 20%. But those can be skewed as far as like 95% and 5%, depending on your goals and objectives. And the pool is designed to gradually adjust its weights from that starting point to an ending point that will flip those 2 weights, which then creates the scenario where you start by holding a majority of your project tokens and a minority of USDC, and then at the end of the sale, you're holding mostly USDC and some of your project tokens because you've sold most of them. So this adjustment mechanism creates consistent downward pressure on price. And when the sale starts, it actually will start at its highest price, which is generally what a team needs to do, is set a price that is clearly higher than what they believe the token is actually worth. The LBP does its magic. That price drops over time and then finds a point where there's some support in the market that will stop the price from dropping because they believe that it has reached a point where it's worth buying. So that when there's buying pressure, the price will stop coming down, but the weights will continue adjusting, which tamps down the price spikes. And all these parameters, like which tokens are in the pool, the duration of the LBP, and the weights of the pool, those are all customizable, and each team configures them based on what they're trying to do. Important thing about LBPs is they've led to a very even distribution of tokens among investors. This is one of the top, preferences for crypto teams, of course, because they don't want project tokens to be centralized or like concentrated in the hands of whales or just particular investors. They want to involve as many community members as possible, which helps them, succeed in the long run. The upfront capital requirement is minimal because you can start the pool not at 50-50, unlike Uniswap, but at 5% reserve asset and 95% your project token. That is like massively different. And since Balancer supports any ERC20 token, the investors are not limited to the reserve asset that you're raising. They can trade any other asset for your token, which goes through our order routing system and it is swapped for your reserve asset when it reaches you. Another thing about LBPs is that front running is not a good idea. Front runners will get wrecked if they try to do that, like kind of play that game on an LBP, just because of the different design of the whole system. And this is there to even the playing field. So humans and regular retail investors are not at a disadvantage against bots and like well-financed funds. Okay, how do LBPs work? I'll quickly go over this because it can be kind of a long subject. Are we running out of time here?
Well, I was going to say, don't make it too quickly. Take your time with this because I want to make sure everybody really understands this is really, really important. So,
cool. How much time do I have, Jamil?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just do your thing.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I won't rush. That's good. So this is a diagram that explains what's actually going on here. So if you're familiar with the Balancer protocol, and well, if you're not familiar with the Balancer protocol, like Balancer is an AMM that essentially consists of many liquidity pools. These are smart contracts that hold like stockpiles of crypto assets. So, and these are pools where, you know, you have different assets paired together that are trading against each other. And that just, all of that whole infrastructure acts as a layer of liquidity for traders. So that if I hold ETH and I want DAI, you know, there are pools on Balancer where ETH and DAI are trading against each other, and I can trade with those pools to trade my ETH for DAI, and, you know, copy paste every other ERC20 token into that template. Now, a smart pool is a particular type of liquidity pool that exists on Balancer. This is one of like the unique innovations of Balancer. It's a liquidity pool that is controlled by a smart contract. And that smart contract can essentially give this pool like superpowers, because it can make decisions, and it can set configurations that will allow the pool to act in certain ways that will like achieve a certain goal. So just for this conversation, LBPs are one of the many, many ways that you can configure a smart pool. So a smart pool is a private pool that is controlled by a smart contract. That smart contract is configured to say, for example, that, you know, this pool can dynamically change the weights of the tokens during the while it's live, while there is actual live liquidity in this pool. This pool can pause trading, because that's part of, you know, you have to be able to, if you want this to be like a finite token sale, like it lasts 3 days or 2 days or 1 day, you need to be able to halt trading in the pool. And that's one of those functions that is enabled by a smart pool. And so the controller of a pool is of a private pool is the gateway for like adding liquidity or removing liquidity to the pool. When you launch an LBP, and your LBP consists of, you know, TKN, like your imaginary project token, and DAI, other liquidity providers like around the Ethereum blockchain can't come and like deposit their liquidity into that pool, because the whole point is for you to basically control this pool as a fundraising mechanism. Those special rights are only granted to the controller of the pool, and that is you, and that can't be changed. A smart contract a smart pool controller can connect to any other smart contract on the Ethereum network, and therefore act based on events outside of Balancer as well. That kind of goes into some of the other ways that you might use a smart pool. These are the variable parameters in smart pools. You can change the tokens that are in the pool. Like these are all parameters that in a non-smart pool, like in a regular liquidity pool, cannot be changed in a public shared pool. So on most of the pools on Balancer, where like you might be an LP who's deposited like some ETH or some DAI or whatever it may be, like, you know that you're depositing assets into a pool that's not going to switch on you. It's not going to just change, because, you know, that would basically violate your trust. That would violate your expectations. So smart pools allow changing the tokens, changing the weights, the swap fee, whitelisting LPs if that's relevant. And it is relevant in an LBP because you need to be the only LP. Limiting the max value that can be deposited into the pool, and starting and halting trading. So some of the past results, like this is, I mean, we'll go through the ones that we have here, and then I'll mention some that are not here because they're more recent. Perpetual Protocol, they did a 3-day token sale. Total volume was almost 22 million, and they raised 15 million equivalent in USD. I think it was like USDC through their pool. So like quite a success, and they were actually the first ever team to use the Balancer LBPs. Another example was Furu Combo. They did their sale for 24 hours. They sold about 4.5 million tokens to a little over 1,000 different investors. Total volume was close to 10 million, and they raised a little over 7 million. And Crescofin is an example of like one that's a little bit smaller. They raised 2.5 million. Total volume was 5.8 million. So you might be wondering, why is there more volume than like what they actually raised? Because the reason is because in an LBP, traders are not limited to only buying; they can sell as well. So there's trading activity back and forth, which helps promote this like price discovery process. To the whole point, you're launching a token that doesn't have market value yet, right? Like you're launching a token that has never been publicly traded. You're putting it out there and you're letting the market decide live, like, what is this thing actually worth? And that's the price discovery process. So some recent results that are not listed here. Let me just pull that up, because they've been actually much bigger. So in February, we actually had quite a few token sales, but the top 5 LBPs in February in aggregate generated $236 million in volume. That's just 5 token sales. And so here are a few of them. Radical, they did 43.2 million in volume in only 2 days. Mask Network did 25 million in volume. I think that was like a 3-day sale. Kylan Network, they might actually still be live. Like yesterday I checked and their token sale was ongoing, but they had hit 14 million at the time that I looked. And there was another one called Siren that was approaching 5 million, might be higher than that now. So, but the point is that more and more teams in crypto are becoming aware of this. It's different from what people are used to, like before. Other ways that you would do a token sale, because it works very differently. There's this downward price pressure thing. Sometimes people are confused about that. It's really important that if you're doing an LBP, that you put out some clear communication to your community about like how this thing works, how it's different from like maybe other token sales that they may have participated in. But this has become so much more popular of late, and we're getting so much interest from teams that want to use this, that I think like it's not so weird anymore, and it's becoming quite normal. That's it for my presentation. If we have time, I'm happy to answer some questions, and feel free to connect with me on Twitter at immutable, IMMUTBL.
Okay, Jeremy, that was phenomenal. A couple questions. One is, so this LBP thing, is it described anywhere in the white papers? Is it like more formally described?
Yeah, we have documentation. It's not in the white paper, because this is sort of like
add-ons.
This was like an emergent innovation using the flexibility of Balancer, which is like a really cool thing about Balancer. But yes, we have our docs.balancer.finance. I could grab the link and post it in the chat here. Like, you let me know what's the best way to share that.
Yeah, that'll be great. But then the projects that you're letting in, do you filter them, or are you a gateway to that, or do you control that?
No, it's permissionless. We don't like let projects in. It's this is Balancer is permissionless. Anyone can do this without even talking to us. A lot of the teams do talk to us because they have questions about like best practices and what do you guys think? Like, this is our plan. We're going to start with this way. We're going to change it this way. We think it's going to last this long. What do you guys think? And we're always happy to like help teams with that. So we do provide like some support. We're obviously not going to like get our hands dirty and like code with you, because we just don't have the resources for that. But we'll definitely share the resources that you need, like as far as documentation. We'll answer your questions. We'll give you some tips as far as like the technical side goes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's amazing that you guys are doing that. you're kind of going above and beyond. That's fantastic. In terms of the best practices that you just mentioned, I know it's case specific, right? So it's this party's coming to you with these set of ideas, and so you're going to maybe customize what you recommend to them. But is there a baseline set of best practices that you might be able to share? Is that documented anywhere, or the wisdoms that you have collected over these other projects, their mistakes that we can learn from? Is there anything like that you can share with us?
Yes, it's kind of like extensive and complex. So I think the best way for me to share that with you is to send you the link to like our FAQs and our docs, so you can dig through them, rather than like going through these like obscure, like weird things live.
Right. Okay, I'm into weird things, but that's a separate story. So we got a couple questions from the audience. One, how does Balancer acquire market participants for a specific token sale? I think you kind of answered that. You don't, right?
Yeah, so acquiring market participants is all on the project. We're the platform. So we are the mechanism for you to distribute your tokens in a way that's fair, transparent, and just works in a way that makes sense for you to achieve your goals. You want your token to be distributed widely. You want everyone in your community to be able to participate. All of those things that we went over, that's our job. That's what we do. And it's on you to promote it, to market it, to spread awareness about it, to post it to your blog and to tweet and all that stuff. That is not our part.
Right. Okay. So basically, the onus is, caveat emptor. It's on you to basically, you as a project are going to take all that risk. Question from John Barry, CEO, Quantify Crypto. Are there regulatory concerns with the SEC? In some ways, you're acting like an investment banker. You are providing the platform, but you're providing a way to issue, right? There's an issuance that's occurring effectively. What are your thoughts on that?
So since first of all, like Bouncer, as I mentioned, is a decentralized permissionless protocol that is governed by decentralized community. It's a platform that you as a crypto team can use to launch your token. When you do that, you have to take into consideration any regulatory implications that would apply. There are all the details that apply to you based on your jurisdiction, where you live, and what the laws are, and what kind of team you are, or what kind of project this is, and what kind of token it is, and all that, which I'm not an expert in any, so I don't offer any legal or financial advice of any kind. But we are not acting as an investment bank because we're not an intermediary to your token sale. You are using a decentralized permissionless platform to independently launch your token, which, as I mentioned, you can do that completely independently, and we encourage you to do that. If you have questions on the technical, how does this thing work, we have people on the Balancer Labs team that are happy to dedicate some time to help you with that. But that's different from us selling or promoting your token in any way.
Right. And that's a very important point. You're not acting on behalf of anybody, right?
Yeah.
You're providing maybe technical guidance on how to use the platform, and that's about it. So are there issuances that or I don't want to use the word issue. Have you seen these raises from organizations that were based in the U.S.? Are there any references that you can point to? And if not, then where are a lot of these groups domiciled, if you happen to know any of that? Because I think the main interest right now is, I think this is very exciting stuff, and people are asking, well, how do I do this for my project? And I want to be able to give them the information so that they can position accordingly.
I think, the way that a lot of teams have been using this is they've been using Balancer to launch a token for a decentralized project that is, wouldn't be regulated the way that a centralized entity would. So again, like that, like I don't have the legal expertise to dive into those details. And like when teams ask us for technical questions or stuff like that, I'm not going in and doing research on where they're legally incorporated and stuff, because that's way beyond our role. It's just way beyond our scope. So I don't, I don't know. That's a case by case basis, and it's really the onus is again on the team to determine what they can and can't do.
Okay, great. We got 2 more questions. We do need to wrap it up now. One, Ralph Benson, CEO, Central Bitcoins Incorporated. Any ICO issues? I'm not sure what that question means. I don't know what that means. Ralph, you can clarify. Jeremy, do you understand that question? Any ICO issues?
I mean, I guess you're implying like, are any of the types of issues that happen in ICOs happening on LBPs? But like, if you could be specific about what issues you're talking about,
yeah,
that would help.
Okay, so he's basically asking, is it like a security? And I think you already answered that that's not your domain, that's not your purview.
Right, and you're saying it in a very general sense. Like each project is very unique. Each project that uses Balancer can be classified by any regulatory organization in any way, right? So I don't know. I don't really have an answer to that.
Okay, understandable. Last question, Roberto, founder MPIO Capital. What is a general minimum threshold of project team company you recommend before attempting using an LBP?
General minimum threshold of what?
A project team. I think it's the same question around best practices that I asked. The team size, company size, anything, any heuristics that you think should be met before doing something on an LBP.
Well, whatever you would. There comes a point in every crypto project's life, if it is the type of project that does launch a token, like a governance token, for example, which is obviously very common in DeFi, and that is a lot of the token sales that have been done on Balancer have been for governance tokens. There comes a time in your project's lifetime where that makes sense, and like I don't think there's like any rules around that. Like LBPs, Balancer in this case, it's just a platform for you to do that when the time is right for you. I guess like someone could do that as a solo developer perhaps, or they can do that as like a big team. There are no rules really on like when to use this. The question is, when are you ready to offer a token to the public markets and use a mechanism like this to do it.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Jeremy, thank you so much. This is really great stuff. Just drop your contact information, any resources into the chat. We have a copy of his slides. We're going to email it out to our RSVP list. This is right now about 1,500 people. Thank you so much. I'm really, really thankful for this talk that you've just provided.
No problem. My pleasure.